Imagine stepping into a modern car dealership in the heart of London, Manchester, or Edinburgh. The familiar scent of new interiors lingers in the air. But what truly captures your attention isn't the latest petrol or diesel model. It's the dazzling lineup of sleek, silent, battery-powered vehicles. In today's United Kingdom, 1 out of every 4 new cars sold is now fully electric, a fact that would have seemed unthinkable just a decade ago. The electric vehicle revolution is here, electrifying headlines, boardrooms, and the dreams of millions. Yet beneath this surge lies a paradox. While the United Kingdom appears to be leading the charge, it is, in reality, at risk of stalling on the road to its own climate ambitions. So how did we arrive at this electrifying crossroads? And what does it mean for you, for businesses, and for the very future of British motoring? Let's rewind and set the stage. The United Kingdom has always positioned itself as a pioneer in environmental and automotive innovation. In the early 2000s, it was one of the first European nations to introduce congestion charging in central London, a move that both reduced emissions and nudged drivers toward greener alternatives. Fast forward to June of this year, and over 190,000 new vehicles rolled onto British roads, marking the busiest June since the pre-pandemic heyday of 2019. This was not a mere statistical blip. It represented a 6.7% increase compared to the same month last year, and it edged the market 3.5% above last year's first-half performance. Yet despite these gains, the total market still lags behind pre-COVID levels by nearly 18%. A reminder that recovery is uneven and that macroeconomic headwinds still loom large. But the real headline is this. Nearly 47,000 of those June vehicles were battery electric, a staggering 39% leap from the previous year. That means that for every 4 new cars leaving the dealership, 1 is powered solely by electricity. This is not just a trend, it's a revolution in progress. From city centers to rural highways, the quiet hum of electric motors is replacing the roar of combustion engines. Government officials, industry analysts, and environmentalists alike have touted these numbers as proof that the United Kingdom is on the cusp of a green mobility transformation. However, as is often the case, the headline conceals a more complicated narrative. Despite the banner month, the overall car market remains stuck in second gear. Private retail buyers, people like you and me, accounted for just under 4 in every 10 new registrations. To put that in perspective, less than 40% of new cars found their way into private driveways, while the lion's share was snapped up by companies and fleet operators. Fleet sales have surged, climbing by nearly 9%, whereas business registrations, a smaller segment, actually dipped by about 16%. Meanwhile, sales of petrol cars dropped by over 4%, and diesel sales were, for all practical purposes, stagnant. The message is clear. The appetite for traditional engines is waning, but the leap to electric is not happening evenly across all segments of society. Enter the government's Zero Emission Vehicle, or ZEV, mandate, a policy designed to force the pace of change. Under this mandate, automakers must ensure that more than 28% of their new vehicles sold this year are zero-emission models. By the dawn of the next decade, that figure must soar to 80%. And by the year 2035, the sale of new fossil fuel vehicles will be banned entirely. These are not mere suggestions. They are legally binding targets, and the penalties for missing them are severe. Industry leaders have responded with a mix of optimism and trepidation. Mike Hawes, the respected chief executive of the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, recently remarked, "A second consecutive month of growth for the new car market is good news, as is the positive performance of electric vehicles. However, this growth is still being driven by substantial industry support, with manufacturers using every channel and unsustainable discounting to drive activity. Yet it remains below mandated levels." Lisa Brankin, managing director of Ford UK, echoes the sentiment, emphasizing that the customer experience is crucial in this shift to electric driving. Yet here lies the crux of the dilemma. Despite the eye-catching sales figures and record investment, the United Kingdom is not meeting its own bold mandates. As of June, only about 22% of new cars sold were battery electric, significantly short of the required 28%. This gap matters, not only because it jeopardizes compliance with government policy, but because it suggests deeper structural challenges. So why is this happening? The government has not been idle. Over £380 million have been earmarked through the Local Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or LEVI, fund, aiming to install more than 100,000 new public charge points across the nation. This is one of the most ambitious charging infrastructure expansions ever attempted in Europe. At the same time, automotive giants are doubling down on their commitment to electrification. Ford, for example, has invested nearly £400 million in its Halewood plant to produce e-drives for the next generation of electric vehicles, including the highly anticipated Puma Gen E and the e-Transit Custom. Other manufacturers, from Nissan in Sunderland to Stellantis in Ellesmere Port, are pouring billions into British electrification. Yet the numbers tell a sobering story. Despite these investments, adoption among private consumers lags behind expectations. Industry analysts point to several factors. First, while fleet and business buyers benefit from favorable tax regimes, bulk discounts, and easier access to charging, the ordinary consumer faces a thicket of uncertainties. Upfront costs remain stubbornly high, even as battery prices fall globally. The patchy availability of public charging, especially in rural areas and older city neighborhoods, fuels so-called range anxiety, discouraging would-be buyers. Even the government's own data reveals that charging infrastructure is not being rolled out evenly across the United Kingdom, with London and the Southeast far ahead of regions like the Northeast and parts of Wales. Moreover, the incentives that once supercharged the market, such as the generous plug-in car grant, have been scaled back or eliminated, leaving some consumers feeling left out in the cold. Mike Hawes warns, as we have seen in other countries, government incentives can supercharge the market transition. Without them, the climate change ambitions we all share will be under threat. And it's not just a matter of hardware. Consumer skepticism lingers. Surveys by the AA and other motoring organizations suggest that nearly 1 in 3 British drivers would consider switching to electric if public charging was as easy and ubiquitous as finding a coffee shop or petrol station. Yet, in too many towns, charging points are still rare, sometimes hidden in hard-to-find corners of supermarket car parks, or behind paywalls that require a confusing array of apps and cards. Reliability, too, remains a concern. Nothing sours the electric dream faster than a broken charger on a rainy night. The next question is, what are the broader consequences if the United Kingdom continues to fall short of its ZEV targets? The stakes extend far beyond the automotive sector. Transport is the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the country, accounting for more than 1/4 of the total. If the shift to electric vehicles stalls, the entire national strategy for meeting legally binding climate commitments is thrown into jeopardy. This has knock-on effects for everything from energy policy. Think of the need for smarter grids and increased renewable generation, to urban planning, where cities like Birmingham and Glasgow are reimagining streets to prioritize electric mobility. There are also international implications. The United Kingdom has prided itself on being a global leader in climate action, hosting the pivotal COP26 summit in Glasgow. Falling behind on EV adoption risks undermining the country's credibility on the world stage, especially as other nations like Norway and the Netherlands race ahead. In Norway, for example, more than 8 out of 10 new cars sold are fully electric, a level of penetration the UK can only dream of, for now. And in China, the world's largest EV market, government support, and vast domestic production have made electric cars not only mainstream, but aspirational. Yet even as challenges mount, there are powerful forces working to turn the tide. Technology is advancing at breakneck speed. Battery chemistries are evolving, with solid-state designs promising faster charging and longer life. New models from companies like Volkswagen, Hyundai, and Tesla are shattering preconceptions about range and performance. The latest generation of electric cars routinely offers over 300 miles on a single charge, and ultra-rapid chargers can now add more than 100 miles of range in less than 15 minutes, faster than it takes to buy a coffee and a snack at a motorway service station. Automakers are also working to make ownership simpler and more appealing. Subscription services, bundled maintenance, and home charging packages are becoming the norm. Ford's investment in British production is just one example of how manufacturers are betting on local supply chains and skilled workers to drive down costs and ensure reliability. Nissan's Sunderland plant, once a symbol of Britain's manufacturing might, is being reinvented as a hub for green innovation, with plans to build next-generation batteries and electric crossovers for the European market. Meanwhile, startups and energy companies are racing to fill the infrastructure gap. Firms like GridServe and InstaVolt are deploying thousands of fast chargers at motorway services and retail parks, aiming to make charging as routine as filling up with petrol. The LEVI fund's ambition to install over 100,000 new charging points could, if delivered on schedule, make the United Kingdom a European leader in public infrastructure. And there's a growing movement to integrate charging with renewable energy, using solar panels, wind turbines, and battery storage to ensure that every mile driven is as green as possible. But progress is far from guaranteed. The industry faces a host of potential bottlenecks. Global supply chains remain fragile after the shocks of the COVID pandemic and geopolitical tensions. Shortages of critical raw materials, lithium, cobalt, nickel, have already led to price spikes and production delays. The semiconductor crunch of recent years forced manufacturers to idle factories and prioritize high-margin models. If these disruptions recur, the pace of electrification could slow dramatically. There is also the risk of a two-speed transition, with business and fleet buyers racing ahead while private consumers are left behind. This would deepen existing inequalities, with wealthier urbanites enjoying the benefits of clean, quiet motoring, while rural and lower-income households stick with older, polluting vehicles. The lessons from other countries are clear. Without targeted support, the green transition can widen social divides rather than close them. Looking ahead, several future scenarios emerge. In the most optimistic case, the combination of government investment, industry innovation, and falling costs triggers a virtuous cycle. Charging infrastructure becomes ubiquitous. Imagine every supermarket, gym, and workplace offering rapid charging, and every new home built with a charger as standard. Battery prices continue to tumble, making electric cars affordable for the average family. The used EV market matures, offering reliable, budget-friendly options for first-time buyers. In this scenario, the United Kingdom could not only meet but exceed its ZEV targets, slashing emissions and setting a benchmark for the world. Alternatively, progress could stall if public investment falters, if planning red tape delays new charge point installations, or if global supply shocks disrupt manufacturing. The transition could slow. Consumers may hesitate, worried about residual values, charging queues, or the pace of technological change. Automakers, faced with penalties for missing targets, may resort to unsustainable discounting or withdraw models from the market altogether. In the worst case, the United Kingdom could find itself falling behind competitors, with jobs and investment moving elsewhere. Within these scenarios lie practical lessons for every stakeholder. For government, the message is clear. Sustained policy support and smart regulation are essential. This means not only funding infrastructure, but also simplifying planning rules, standardizing payment systems, and maintaining purchase incentives. For industry, it's about listening to consumers, offering more affordable models, building trust in battery longevity, and making charging as easy as possible. For consumers, the landscape is shifting fast. Early adopters have already reaped the rewards of grants and company discounts, but the next wave of buyers will demand more: better range, faster charging, and seamless integration with their digital lives. Lisa Branken of Ford UK puts it simply: the shift to electric is not just about the car, it's about making the whole experience better for the customer. This means everything from intuitive apps that locate and reserve chargers to transparent pricing and reliable service. It also means choice. From compact city runabouts to family SUVs and high-performance models, the electric future promises more variety than ever before. So what does all this mean for you, the viewer and potential driver? The next few years will reshape the very meaning of mobility. Whether you're a commuter, a parent, a road tripper, or a business owner, the electric transition will touch your life. For some, the tipping point may come with the next car purchase, a government grant, a workplace charging scheme, or the launch of a new model that finally ticks every box. For others, it may take longer, as habits, infrastructure, and perceptions evolve. The obstacles holding back Britain's electric vehicle revolution, charging anxiety, upfront cost, and patchy incentives, are real, but not insurmountable. History provides inspiration. In the early days of the railways, skeptics doubted that trains could ever replace the horse and carriage. In the 20th century, mass adoption of the motorcar transformed society in ways no one could have predicted. Today's electric transition is just as profound. When technology, policy, and public will align, transformation can happen far faster than anyone expects. And here's an intriguing fact. According to recent studies, nearly 1 in 3 British drivers say they would consider going fully electric if public charging was as easy as finding a coffee shop. The challenge and the opportunity lies with government and industry to make that dream a reality. As the race to electrify Britain's roads gathers pace, The future hangs in a delicate balance. On one hand, technological leaps and government initiatives promise a greener tomorrow. On the other, persistent roadblocks threaten to stall the journey. Which path will the United Kingdom ultimately travel? If incentives are supercharged and charging stations bloom in every town, we might witness a surge in electric vehicle ownership by the end of this decade. Imagine a landscape where finding a charging point is as easy as spotting a petrol station, and the anxiety of running out of power on a long journey becomes a distant memory. This is the vision that experts like Mike Hawes believe is within reach, if policy and industry continue to move in lockstep. But as always, the outcome depends on choices made today. Will the United Kingdom double down on its leadership, or will it allow the momentum to slip away? Will you, the driver, become part of the electric future, or will you wait and see? Let us know in the comments what would make you take the leap and go electric. If you found this deep dive illuminating, subscribe for more analysis on the forces shaping our world, from climate policy to technological disruption and beyond. Together, let's keep the global conversation charged up and help ensure the future